There you go. You're live.
Hello, everybody. Jody Humphrey here, coming to you, COMD, here in Atlanta, Georgia. Excited to be here. So fired up to be part of HGI Nation. Today's Wealth Wednesday. We got some great fundamentals lined up for you. Got our great team lined up. Zach and Kimberly ready to go. The great Tim O'Rourke ready. And today we got a special guest, Matt Salvatore. Matt's going to be here pretty much every other Wednesday, and boy, he's got some great things lined up for us today. So we're very excited. We're very clear. We're very turnkey. We know where we're going, and we're excited about it. Okay, and this is my tip of the day is just to have everything in a system. Have have everything you do be repeatable, and I think that's just the key. Simplify to amplify, right? Simplify to clarify, all those things. So that's what we're all about today. So we're so excited to have all of you here. Let's get started with the great Tim O'Rourke. We're excited to hear from him. All kinds of things happening in the world, and this is where we get a little bit better every week. Know that we start out with Tim's talks, where he goes in and just gives us some. This is a 30,000-foot level, but guys, they're all things that you need to know and be able to converse about. So, Tim, thank you as always, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Hey, thanks, Jody. Thanks, everybody. You know, I do a lot of this scouring every day, and I read a lot before. If you see my Tim Talks comments, I try to go through the entire. I get up early and I read. I look at the news. Obviously, I look at CNBC, Fox News. I look at different resources that I use, and try to watch all the different things like the CPI that came out today, and try to condense it into some key things going on so that you have some touch points, because I know you're busy, and I want to give you some condensed things just to think about. And by the way, it's great to have Matt Salvatore on here. He's a great guy, a good partner for HGI, and appreciate you being here, Matt. So it's interesting. We talk about inflation and what the impact of that is, and we talk about all these different investment kind of models that are in the IULs and the index annuities. And now we're seeing it live, kind of how they play out. So the CPI came out today, and it was much higher than expected. We've been talking about inflation. You know, the Fed's goal is to get inflation down to 2%. That's kind of where we've been for a very long time. If you look back to the 08, 09, what we call the Great Recession, right? It was when everything pretty much fell apart. The Federal Reserve, the Federal Reserve is that the institution. It's the federal group of banks around. It's an independent group outside the government, basically, that controls the interest rates in the U.S. It's the discount rate, the rate that they charge banks to borrow money. And so the Federal Reserve they've lowered rates consistently. In fact, Zach, who has control? If I send you something, can you throw it up?
Send it to me.
Send it to you. Okay, hang on. Let me find it.
You can show it too, Tim.
Let me send it to you while I'm just keep talking, because I think it'd be easier if you don't mind. Find it here real quick, and I'll keep jabbering here. So the Federal Reserve, obviously, I always call it a blunt instrument. They decrease and increase interest rates so that it affects the borrowing cost. If I can find it here, I copied this because I thought it was pretty interesting. Oh, here it is. Okay, I'll forward this to you, Kimberly.
The CPI is the Consumer Price Index that Tim's referring to. That's basically an index that tells us what things cost to consumers, and when that goes up, that means that things cost more. So for those of you that don't know what the CPI is, I just wanted you to understand that. But that was up more than it was supposed to be based on market expectations this morning when it came out.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know if I kind of laughed when I saw this. Has anybody been buying eggs lately?
I know there's a 50-cent surcharge markup at Waffle House per egg.
Oh my gosh, they're up 53% eggs. I
Yeah.
went into Trader Joe's the other day and it was like, wait a minute, that was $2.63 and now it's $3.75 or something at Trader Joe's, which is kind of crazy. Instant coffee was up 7.1%. Bacon was up 6%. Condiments, salt, seasoning, spices, relishes, sauces are up 10.3%. So you kind of see the effect of food out there and what's driving all this. I mean, right across the board, all the food was way up overall. Energy obviously was up. There's a lot of effect here as we look through other items. Automobile insurance was up 11.8%. College textbooks was up 10.7%. Postage was up 8.4%. When we see the effect of this, what we do is so important. The cost of inflation. When you think of the impact, what are the major impacts that we try to protect families for? It's taxes. It's inflation. The cost of living is such a huge. It's almost like a silent killer, Zach. When you think about what we protect people's savings for, people work their entire lives. It's amazing. And if you don't have a passion for what we're doing, you got to have a passion for this because it's what drives you to help people, because this is not an easy job what we're doing, because helping people protect their livelihood, their lives, their family from all of these silent killers out there. And this is a perfect example, Zach, of what's going on today. It's amazing to me. So as I look at this whole thing of the inflationary impact, and can you throw that up on the screen,
Yep.
Kimberly? So that little thing there, this is what the Federal Reserve has done over the last few years. So March of 22, they started raising interest rates because inflation was out of control. So they raised 25 basis points and 50 in May. Then look at that, 75. I mean, I can't tell you the last time before that we've seen the Federal Reserve raise interest rates 75, 3/4 of a point, 1, 2, 3, 4 times in a row. I mean, that's like 3 percentage points right there from June to November. And then another percentage point on each side of that. I mean, a half a point on each side of that. That's 4.25 points right there on that top level. And then they kept raising it another point on top of that. I mean, that's just unheard of. And then, as you can see, they go to zero, right? Because they wanted to, see the effect of how that's going to lower inflation. So we saw inflation go up. This was back, what was it, 9.7%, I think, Zach, somewhere around there. Wasn't that the peak?
I think so.
And then all of a sudden it started to drop, and it dropped big because when you start putting the borrowing cost on these companies to those levels, it started lowering inflation and starting bringing down the cost of borrowing, which lowered the inflationary impact. And the other factor that we're always playing with out there in the market is also technology. One of the things that we're all kind of curious about, and we talk about this a lot, is what is the effect of artificial intelligence here going forward? How much impact is that going to have on the economy? It's amazing. A lot of people will say, "Oh, I'm keeping my money in the bank. I'm keeping my money in CDs." Well, how's that going to work out for you? If you were on the call last week, I talked about the 3 different investments, three primary investments, right? You can put your money in CDs, treasuries, you know, I write about treasuries in my Tim Talks every day, every week, every day actually, and point out that treasuries, you know, I mean, there's the safest investment you can go to. I mean, if the world ends, they're always going to pay treasury rates. Doesn't matter, you know, you're going to be safe, and they're not going to return much. You're going to get your money back, but they're not going to return much. And then the other one is non-producing investments like gold. You know, if you bought gold in 1945, if you bought 300 ounces of gold in 1945, look it up. It was $37.50 an ounce, and it would have cost you $11,750. You know what gold would be worth at the end of 2024 if you would held on to it. The end of 2024, I wrote this down. This is pretty interesting. Gold would have been worth that same gold, $878,010. Not bad. If you would have invested it in the S&P and reinvested off your dividends from 1945 to the end of 24, that same amount of money is worth $64,723,000.
Let's buy some gold.
Hey,
Holy!
I was alive in
moly.
1945 with $11,000.
Right?
Oh yeah, that was a lot of money in 1945. Even if you bought, you know, 100 ounces, I mean, or 10 ounces, whatever. I mean, the point of the story is you have to have play in the market. So, but the older your clients get, the more we got to protect them on the downside, and that's what we're doing here. You know, we're protecting people's downside and giving them participation in the market. That's all we're trying to do, is show them a path to protecting assets.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing. And
You know, I think it's interesting, Tim, when we talk about the market in general, people are concerned about a market drop, right? But we call it a market correction for a reason, right? Because it ultimately corrects things back to where we know what's actually worth what. And so as long as we're using these principles that HGI teaches, such as, you know, being conservative even in the markets side of things, like we are with WFS, our most aggressive model is considered moderate across the board, right? And so there, but also in protecting clients with the index life and with the annuities that we use. You've talked about refinancing your retirement while rates are up, right? So the opposite of the mortgage world is right now, insurance companies are paying a premium, right? The rates are higher, the bonuses are great. So now's a great time to flip that over. And we've talked a lot about that from a product perspective. So I always appreciate your perspective on the market, and I love the quick. I mean, I don't know how many times looking at that Tim's talk has given me something to talk to a client about that day, or just kind of put that in my brain without me having to go look for it. So I thank you so much for what you do.
absolutely. Well, have a great week, everybody. Appreciate you all. Thanks, Jody. Thanks, Kimberly. Thanks, Zach.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
buddy. Great
Yeah.
stuff today. You know, guys, a couple of thoughts, and I want to give Taurus credit on this one, because we had a great BOP last night, and you know, it's all about growth, and none of this matters if we don't have new clients and all that kind of good stuff, or new prospects, right? New eyeballs. But we, as you all know, every Tuesday night at 9 and every Thursday night at 9, we do a BOP, and I'm kind of moving it around as to who helps us. But last night, Taurus helped. It was my partner with James too, but Taurus did a great job at the beginning of it, talking about, you know, coming off the Super Bowl, that to win that Super Bowl you had to play defense and offense, and candidly defense won that particular game. And but he talked about that and kind of how that obviously applies to us, how that applies to what we do, that we are in a total game where we have defense and offense. And I thought it was a fantastic way to set up that call, and it kind of sets up where we're at today. Guys, we're in an era of questions, words, questions, stories, words, stories, questions. That's what we do. And every week, you know, get that information, but come out here with action, and come out here with words and questions and things to say. For example, I watched a seminar last night that you're going to actually see next week. And I cannot tell you guys, next week we're going to rock the world with one of the top annuity producers that's in the industry who happens to be in our business. It's going to be on here with us. But a couple of things that I thought were phenomenal that were mentioned. But one of them is this great question. Say, says, does it make sense to have an increasing income on your depleting asset? Now, you may not even know what that means. But you ponder on that for a while, and we'll come back and talk about that because that's one of those questions where people are like, well, what are you talking about? But talking about the annuity world, listen to this. Last year, there's $432 billion in annuities sold. And guys, in fixed income annuity, 125 billion. That's mainstream. That's big, big numbers. That's where we're at. And so if you hadn't caught on to the game, it is the game, and along with all the rest of the things that we do. And we're gonna, I want you to be prepared. If you're going out, are you ready to go to battle? If you're gonna sit down with somebody and you're gonna talk to them about IULs, do you have your tools ready? Do you have the tax-free retirement? Do you have this wonderful book, that talks about that? Are you ready? My question is, are you ready? If somebody hauled off and said, I want to buy something, I want to hear what you do. Are you ready to give a coherent statement? Are you ready to give a presentation? Do you have your stuff ready? Get ready for battle. Be ready to go. So no matter who you're at, you're ready for them with whatever we got. So the last thing that I want to say before we go into this presentation and then segue into Matt is this, okay? We're going to go over the fundamentals right now, okay? It's the core concepts. And I love that title because the core concepts mean the core concepts. It is all that really matters. And I want you to hear me. The issue isn't whether or not Corebridge versus Nationwide versus F&G on any one product, the question isn't even whether buy term and invested difference is better than an IUL. Those are not the question. The problem is people are doing nothing. That's the issue. Most people would be better off buying a whole life policy than what they're doing, which is nothing. I mean, so we've got to get people where they understand the fundamentals, and the reason they're not doing anything is one is they don't have the cash flow, which we could change, and two is they don't know a clear path. And so everything we do is about teaching people how money works. That is what we fundamentally get people moving so they can move with confidence. So let's go into that presentation and let's move through it pretty quick so we can, give Matt the time we want. So Kimberly.
Absolutely. Zach, you want to say something while I find this presentation? I had it.
Yeah. So
I gotta find it now.
This is a fantastic presentation. It's in your back office. You can download it. You can print it out. You can order used to be able to order a fancy copy of it. I know if you've come to the last several events, there's been an embossed copy of this thing in almost every single packet of information. And I think it's very important, like Jody said, to understand these are core concepts. These are the concepts that we want to understand. We want to be able to articulate. And these are things that a lot of people have never been taught. They've never been taught them in school. I can tell you that. We started years ago reading a book called Financially Fit Kids, and we did a lot of training and teaching out of that for our own kids, but also to our clients. It was, let me go grab that. You finished it.
And it was fantastic. So just to show you or tell you guys where this is in the back office. Yeah, I see it, Jody, or I did see it. You went away.
This is the one you get in the packet right here.
Yep. So if you guys, obviously everyone should go to our conferences. Vegas is the next one. So we'll put that big old plug out there. You need to be there if you're serious about running your business. But you'll always get that in your packet, but you also have it in your back office. So under marketing, then you can go to, I think it's flyers and brochures, and this is down there in the products and concepts conversation. But ultimately, we want you guys to understand. We want you guys to understand how this works, right? How money works. What are the core financial concepts? How do we create wealth for families? And if you understand this, whether you use this presentation or you just use knowledge from this presentation, then you're going to be able to articulate more of what we do with your clients. And I think it's super important to know and understand.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Kimberly, what I was saying was it's also in Leader Mastery. And also, in the bot, when we go through, said these are all the things you'll learn when you're here. Almost all of them are right here.
Yeah. So as we look at this is the way I walk through this, and what I'm not gonna give the presentation to you guys. We'll do that on a recording. Jody's and I, Kimberly, have been talking about this for a long time, so we'll make a recording of this that'll be available for you, so you can use that.
Because we do have some. But
We have some, but we'll make some new and updated ones. But I'm going to talk to you guys quickly as we go through this about the point of the slides and what we're trying to get across. Ultimately, right here, we want people to understand that we're educating them. We want them to take control. And so we want them to understand these concepts, paying yourself first. That's on the slide that Jody mentioned. We want them to understand they can't wait until you're out of debt necessarily to start saving for retirement, because debt is part of our life for most folks. So we need them to understand they've got to pay themselves first. Secondly, earn additional income. Guys, hello, we know what that's all about, right? The problem most people have is not that they don't manage their money, it's they don't make enough money. So we're going to teach them how to make some extra money. Adjust your lifestyle, right? Understand the difference between wants and needs and make responsible choices, and avoid the credit trap, right? Avoid buying a television by a monthly payment, and buy a television when you can pay cash for it, right? Also, we want that emergency fund to be there. So if you got to dip in somewhere, you can dip in and take cash out and replenish that instead of paying 28% interest on a credit card. And then ultimately change the way you think about money. Our relationship with money is really founded in our childhood based on the relationship our parents had with money. So you've got to realize there's not a shortage of it. There's just a shortage of people that understand how to go get it.
I think that's, and I know we won't go off on this tangent, but there is not a shortage of money, right? If you want something, just figure out how to go make more. You have that opportunity, go do it. But
Mindset's massive. When you talk to people that have had that mindset shift into, if this business I run today were to go under, I can do it again tomorrow and I'll be fine. And really, when you start to see the world that way, you see a world of opportunity instead of a world of defeat. So that's the change your thinking part.
so this is our 6 steps to financial security. You guys have heard me talk about it a million times. You've heard me quiz you on it and say, all right, what's step 1? What's step 2? You've seen it on the business and the distribution, the production and distribution slide that Jody just created. But ultimately, with every single client, when we sit down with them, we go through 6 areas of their financial life. Step number 1 is increasing cash flow. Most people's problem isn't that they can't manage their money, is that they don't make enough, right? Step number 2 is debt management. Most people's number 1 goal is to get out of debt. Let's get out of debt and have financial freedom. Those are their number 1 and number 2 goals, promise. Step number 3 is emergency fund, making sure that you have 3 to 6 months income somewhere just in case. So your credit cards don't become your emergency fund. Proper protection, which is life insurance, making sure that if something happens, your plan is self-completing, that your family is taken care of, that they will definitely have an emotional loss, right? If something were to happen, but they're not going to have a financial loss as well. It's a huge peace of mind that you can give to your families. Step number 5 is building wealth. And I always say the first 4 steps, that's like the proper foundation on a house, right? If we're building a house, we want to make sure that our foundation is solid. So then when we get into the design of it and look at the walls and the roof and the windows and the interior and making it as pretty as we want it to be, that nothing can tear it down because our foundation is solid. Exactly the same thing here with building wealth. Building wealth is the decorating of the house and making it beautiful. And most people want to fast forward to that step immediately, right? They're like, hey, make me rich. Hey, let's talk about how much money you can help me save for retirement. But they don't want to put all those other stopgaps in place. So if something happens, they're protected. And we go in order to make sure that it's taken care of. And then finally, preserving wealth, making sure that their will and trust and financial medical powers of attorney are taken care of.
Yeah. And this is basically the first 2 slides together. It's in a very clear way to understand. We need to build this from the ground up, right? And you've got those words like defensive, offensive, aggressive, and then even so on that side. So it's a visual representation of the previous 2 slides. I don't really spend a whole lot of time diving into this unless there's something that I'm going in that direction with that client. But I would just say we want to start from the bottom to make sure that when we get all the way to the top, and you're buying your wants, you're still able to retire down the road. So
And if you start at the bottom, look, it starts with protection. That is life insurance. That is the cornerstone of any financial plan. Make sure you have it, right? For multiple reasons, death,
Yeah.
sickness, all of those things.
So it's protect, then it's emergency fund, then it's saving, and so on and so forth. This is the theory of decreasing responsibility, the wealth flow formula, the X curve. You've heard it many different things. People need to understand what they need when, right? And the butterfly chart that we've seen through the Corebridge stuff, very similar concept. And again, like I said, we're on a we've got a lot of things planned for you guys today, and this is a long presentation, so I'm going to just kind of go through this quickly. But in the beginning, you don't have a lot of money, but you have a lot of obligation in most cases. So that's why we want to talk about term insurance there. And then in the end, you're going to have, right, you see it down there at the bottom, young children, high debt, mortgage. And then as you get older, your children are gone out of your home. You've got lower debt in theory. Your mortgage is paid off in theory. But as the butterfly chart shows you very well, there are other expenses that creep in. The main one being aging, medical needs, and also retirement income needs. So we just want people to understand this concept. So as we talk to them about the next things, that makes sense. So here is an example that we have a whole other presentation on about buying term and then investing in an IUL. So this is kind of the concept of all of those previous companies, ideas and concepts that have evolved, and they've gone from buy term and invest in mutual funds from the first Hubert explosion into the variable life where you were buying and investing in mutual funds wrapped up in an insurance. And now here we have, like we've talked about earlier with Tim, we have the same kind of concept with some stop gaps and some defensive mechanisms in there. And we just want them to understand that concept. And I hope that makes sense. I'm going to keep rocking and rolling through here. Know how to calculate, because a lot of times when we go through the dime and we sit down with folks, they're blown away by the number at the end. And this is something that you can do
but
very,
they
very
also
quickly.
usually buy it.
They do. But if you sit down with them and they say, I want to buy life insurance, I don't care if they make, $100,000 a year or they make $1 million a year, they're going to say, I need a $500,000 insurance policy. That should be enough. That, for whatever reason, that's like a default. It makes people feel like they're going to be wealthy if they get a deposit of $500,000, when in reality, you make $100,000 a year, you need at least $1 million, because that's 10 times your income. So explaining this to people is a good way for them to understand exactly where we get the math. And then a lot of them will buy that number, right? Whether it be a combination of an IUL and a term, or whether it just be a term because they can't afford an IUL right now, but they'll still buy that number. And if not, you've at least shown them where it came from, right?
And I think that's our goal, is to teach, right? That's our job. That's our responsibility, is to teach them. It's their job to choose.
This is designed to be an educational piece, not a sales piece. It's to teach people core
You could
financial
easily
concepts.
do it, for some of you guys that deal with business owners, you could go in and teach this as a PowerPoint to your employees of a business, right? And just say, we want to teach you guys some of the rules of money, right? We want to teach you how money works, and schedule appointments after that. But it's a fantastic educational piece.
And I always say to people, I don't care if that, I don't really care what their answer is. I say, have you heard of the rule of 72? And if they say yes, I say, well, great, then and I'll go ahead and tell them about it. If they say no, I've never heard of the rule of 72, I'm going to say, oh, well, it's the magic of compound interest. Albert Einstein called it the eighth wonder of the world, and I'm going to go right into this. And basically, I explained to them the math. You take the rate of return that you're currently getting on your investments, and you divide that into 72, and it'll tell you how many years it takes your money to double. If you look at this, you can see $10,000 at 2%, 4%, 8%, and 12% in the same span of years, and what that looks like. But what I like to tell people and really get them to understand on this particular slide is, some people say, well, I'm not investing anything, so great. That means that it's never going to double. And I say, but the rule of 72 is always working in your life. It's either working for you or against you. And I'll say, what's the average credit card interest rate on the credit cards that you have right now?
Anybody want to guess? Average interest rate on a credit card?
26%.
It's
25,
between-
26% easily.
Yeah. And that's, I don't care what your credit score is. Any rate that's less than that right now is an introductory rate. and they're out there, but it doesn't matter with rates like Tim showed earlier. That's just what you're paying for it. So if you do the math, and let's just make it simple for folks, this is what I always say. I always say I wasn't a great math student. So let's just round it up to 75, and let's say the interest rate's 25. How many years does it take the bank's money to double with me paying them 25% interest? 3 years. Why do you think they own all the big buildings in all the downtown metropolitan areas? Because they've got us right where they want us. My goal is to help you understand how to let that rule of 72 stop working against you and start working for you. But the first thing you got to do is understand how it works. Now I go to the next slide. That's all I would say on that. These are big things. You know, we play defensive math. We play defensive strategies, right? So we need people to understand, when does 50% cost you 100%?
And a lot of times I'll use this in just general like language, right? So here you can see if you start with $1,000, you lose 50%, then you've lost 500, right? So you end up with $500. Most people believe that if they earn that 50%, then they're back to where they started. But in reality, if we take 50% of 500, that's only 250. That puts me at 750, not the 1,000 that I started with. So if I lose 50%, if you look at the bottom of this, if I lose 50%, I have to make 100% to get back to level. That's why it's so important to have, you know, the WFS strategy if we're in the managed money piece, right? The index piece for the IULs and the index annuities and things like that, because losing 50% and having to earn 100% is not a quick thing, right? To start back from where you were. That's what we call 2008 to 2018 the lost decade, right? It literally took 10 years when they lost that from their 401ks and their retirement accounts. It took 10 years to get back to level before you start earning money again. So we explain that to them in this example. And a lot of times, if I'm not pulling this up, I'm going to just say, let's take $100. If you lose 50% of it, how much do you have? Because people can do that math, right? They're like, oh, I have $50. Okay. Now, how much do you have to earn to get back to your $100? Well, I have to earn 50%. I lost 50%. Okay. Well, let's talk about that. What's 50% of $50? They're like, oh, that's $25, right? And then they see that math. So just make it simple for them, whether it is on a screen or just in verbal conversation. James, you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to also mention it's still not level because you're still competing against inflation. So what was 100,000 10 years ago isn't $100,000 today.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and again, you're right. And one of the things that I want to explain to people down the road is you'll learn more of these concepts and how they apply to people the more money you make and the more your circles change and more these concepts matter as you when we started, our normal client was a school teacher. And they were worried more about the foundation of getting started and those kind of things. And as we made more money and we moved to different neighborhoods and we surrounded ourselves with different socioeconomic groups, there's different causes, different problems, different questions that these people have. And you'll learn how to answer them in different ways. But when we're talking to the average American, they really are worried about paying their bills next week. So remember, these are great concepts to teach them, but ultimately we want to offer value with this presentation. And then we go back to those 6 steps and we take that person through their needs. Power of index accounts, guys, you know what a lock-in is. You should anyway by now because of as many times as we've talked about it. The only thing I show people here and that I talk about personally is I tell them this is $100,000 invested in 1997 and it's tracking it only to 2020. But what the point of this is for me to show them is that you cannot afford a major drop in your accumulation phase, but it only takes one big correction, as you see the .com drop there in 2001, where the market dropped straight down and the floor was locked in on the blue line, and never in the next 20 years did the red line catch the blue line. And that's what I want people to understand is that playing defense is very important. The Warren Buffett rule is it's much more important to be out on the worst day than in on the best day. And I think his rule is actually rule number 1 is don't lose money, and rule number 2 is see rule number 1, in the way he says that. So the concept of actual data that just shows them, look, this is with floors and zeros basically. So.
And we've said in the past, zero's your hero, right? If I could guarantee you would never lose in this account, would that make sense? Yes. So in both of your IULs and your indexed annuities, they're all indexed, right? So remember that term index, that's what that means. We are tracking an index, but also with tracking that index comes those guarantees and those floors, right? As far as knowing that you're not going to lose, which is huge, and it's important for your clients. And then finally, just start, right? When is the best time to plant a tree, Jody?
30 years ago.
30 years ago. When's the second best time to plant a tree?
Now.
So yeah, if you'd started at 25, putting in $3,600 a year, and then stopped at age 31, you'd have $25,000 contributed and $128,000 in your account. But if you wait 7 years to start, then you have to put in $3,600 a year from age 31 to age 48. So literally 3 times the contributions, up to $61,000, to equal the same amount or close to the same amount that you would have just because you waited. Those 7 years of compounding make so much difference in your portfolio. And again, if you didn't start 7 years ago, why, right? None of us did. Let's start now. Let's move forward. We got to start today, but don't wait 7 years to start, because it can definitely hurt you.
Yeah.
Wait, on that last slide, I use that slide in my fast start to show people why to get off to a fast start. You could use the same analogy as to why somebody needs to start recruiting versus waiting 30 days. So I'll hit you with that one on Thursday night, just teasing you on that.
That's awesome. We've talked about this before, different types of retirement income: tax now, tax deferred, tax advantaged. You can ask your clients in the F&A, do you have any tax advantage retirement plans? Which bucket does your money fit into? All of it's in a 401k? Great, that's tax deferred.
99% of the time when you ask them if they have tax advantage, they're going to say, yeah, everything's in a 401k. And you say, oh, no, that's tax deferred.
Right.
I mean tax advantage.
So it's just education, just understanding, right? You've got money in the bank, some mutual fund CDs and stocks. You've got money in 401ks, IRAs, 403bs. Do you have any money in life insurance and cash value life insurance? If you don't, we should discuss it. And then this just shows it a different way, right? So tax deferred means you don't pay any tax on your deposits, which is that small amount down there. But on tax deferred growth, you pay taxes actually on all of that, right? Because you've never paid taxes before. In a tax advantage account, you only pay taxes on those after-tax deposits at the bottom. And again, I use basic, easy numbers to explain that to clients as well. I'm like, okay, let's say that we put $100 into your 401k today, right? That's your small deposit, right? We put $100 into your 401k today, and it grows to 1,000. And let's say that taxes are 20%. I'm saving $20 to then pay $200 to pull my $1,000 out. Does that make sense? No. I would much rather pay $20 now on my 100 to pull my 1,000 out tax-free. Easy conversations. Living benefits, we all understand what that means. I'm going to go really quick so Matt can speak for the last few minutes. But ultimately, we have access to it, and we can. It's life insurance you don't have to die to use. And then there are always reasons not to invest. You can start in 1934, and it was the Depression. 1963, Kennedy was assassinated. 1965 was the Civil Rights Marches. 1992 was the Los Angeles riots. 1994, the Fed raised interest rates 6 times. 2004, volatile crypto market, right? Coronavirus in 2020. There is always a reason not to invest. What's your reason? Again, back to that high cost of waiting, we can start today. So I'm going to stop my share and shut my mouth so Matt can have all the time I gave him.
I'm so appreciative of all the time you've given me.
You guys are wonderful. Just always doing a great job. And guys, one little cool thing. And before I show this, I want to credit Kathy Cunningham for making sure that this got done. I want to show you guys real quick something that's just fantastic that you can use. And this is that she had prepared for us in terms of she got Net Law to do this. And I think it's way cool. And it says net law, forever love, protect, forever protected. This is about the month of love, with it being Valentine's. And it goes to that, what better thing can you do for them than provide a estate planning? So I'm putting this into the little chat and sending it out to all of you guys. And so I thought that was a really cool idea. And I know you could do the same type thing. Matt's going, I got to do one of those for the insurance side, but it fits right there with that net law. So I thought that was pretty cool. So, all right, now back over to you, my man. The rest is yours. Thank you so much for being here. We're excited for the future. Let's go. Matt Salvatore.
Absolutely. That was great. That was like a little net law commercial in between two segments of a show. That was awesome.
Brought to you by
Net Law.
Yeah.
Well, no, I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you guys. Always good to see you, and always good to listen in on some of the conversation. The biggest challenge for me is when I come on meetings like this and I hear what other people are talking about. I just want to add so many little snippets to everybody's comments. But I do have content I want to present here. But I want to go back to one thing that Zach and Kimberly said, right? And it comes down to indexing, right? And the power of zero, and zero is your best friend, zero is your hero. For years in this industry, we have said that in every other type of an account, right? When the market goes down, you get zero. Or when the market goes down, you don't have to worry about the losses. I heard a speaker last week that said we need to just change the way we say that and say, hey, when every other account is down, you get to keep your money. So don't say you don't lose or you get zero. Zero still isn't great. But when you tell them you get to keep your money when everybody else is losing money, that just changes the emotional side of what we do. So just changing some words around sometimes could have such a profound effect on what we do. So what is it that we do? I sent this over to Kimberly the other day. I was hoping for some feedback, but I'm probably going to distribute this a little bit more widely since I didn't get any feedback. But I will share with you.
Maybe I should go look at it.
Well, you'll see
No, I'm just kidding. Just share with you some bullet points, some
I didn't
one-line.
get that.
You all know I'm big on storytelling, right? Having some one-liners so that you could run into somebody in an elevator, or you could run into somebody at a bar and be able to very quickly not just tell them what you do, but get them intrigued, get them interested, right? What do you do? If you say I'm in the financial services industry, or I've got a team of financial services associates, right? It doesn't have that much buzz behind it. But when you can play with them a little bit, have some fun with it, and you can say a couple of these things that you see here on the screen now. I help families and business owners make decisions today they'll appreciate in 20 or 30 years. Well, immediately the next question is, well, what do you mean? What kind of decisions, right? What kind of questions? I help clients win the money game by giving them a strategy. Well, what's the strategy, right? They want to know more immediately. So a lot of it just comes down to having a strong story. And one of them has been talked about a few times here on this call alone, which is playing financial offense and financial defense. And so I'm going to share a quick PowerPoint deck with you all just to go through a couple of slides on this exact topic of playing financial offense and financial defense. And again, it just changes the narrative a little bit. Make sure I've got the right screen here pulled up. Okay, so tell your clients right up front, I play two critical roles in helping you plan your financial future. I'll help you play financial offense for what you plan and what you expect to happen, but then we'll also play financial defense for what you don't expect to happen, right? That's the conversation. That's the difference between a financial advisor and a wealth manager and typically an insurance agent. You guys have the ability to kind of do both here, right? But it's the understanding that when you're going into a conversation with a client, that you're going to help them play defense and offense. Taurus said it. We witnessed it this weekend. Defense wins Super Bowls, right? Offense wins games. Defense wins championships, right? I think that came out of the meeting with maybe with you, Zach. But that's really what a crux of it is, right? You can win a game by having a good offense, but long term, in order to win that championship, when you get to the championship, everybody's good. So it's your defense that will determine whether you win that championship or not. So what is financial offense? This is, again, what our traditional wealth managers, financial advisors do. They put money in, they're figuring out your risk tolerance, they're rebalancing the portfolio, they're picking sexy stocks. They're excited. They're looking at the charts. The charts are going up. Things are all good, right? We're riding the market wave, the bull market. Things are going great. And this is what it looks like you'll have at retirement, and this is how much you can spend each year, and this is what will be left for your legacy. Now, for 10 years, I wholesaled to a financial services organization that's very well known in the St. Louis area. We got a couple St. Louis folks on this call here today. And when I was talking to many of those financial advisors, I would tell them, pull up one of your top 10 clients. right? And they'd pull up their Financial Foundations, which is the system they use. And I'd say, how do you feel about this client? Oh, they're great. They're on track. They're going to have money. They're not going to run out of money until age 102. Things are great. We've got taxes under control. We've got all these things under control. And I would say, go into their foundation, add an expense. And they'd be like, all right, what am I doing here? We'd go in to 80 years old and add a 4-year expense of $100,000 a year, right? It was a long-term care chronic illness episode. And when they put that $400,000 expense in, 100 grand a year for 4 years, every single one of those clients turned red. You're going to run out of money at 88, 92, 93 years old. Every single time. And so what I found was that a lot of these advisors, they've built their careers and they were really just playing financial offense. None of them were playing financial defense. They were planning for prepared for what they planned to happen, right? I'm going to retire. I'm going to go on 2 vacations a year. I'm going to take the kids to Disney. All the things that they want to happen, all the things that they plan to happen, but they were not playing financial defense. Financial defense is helping protect our clients from the unexpected, right? And you could even classify long-term care as expected because 1 in 4 of us is going to need it, but it's considered an unexpected expense, right? When we talk about financial defense, we're talking about insurance products. Again, this is the base. This is the foundation of your financial home. You can decorate it. You can have the nicest roof, the nicest windows, the nicest curtains in your house. But if you don't have a great foundation, all it takes is one event and now you're in financial rubble, right? Auto insurance, homeowners insurance, disability, long-term care, health insurance. I don't know why life insurance isn't on here, but that's what this is. That's what financial defense is. It's making sure that if things don't go the way you have planned, do we have a backup plan so that the rest of your plan is not disturbed, right? So we've got to make sure our clients know that we play financial offense as much as we play financial defense. Nobody wants to collect on their insurance, but when they do, they're so glad it's there. Now, this conversation also comes into play when you're talking to a prospect and they say, I've got a guy, I've got a financial advisor, I've got a wealth manager, I've got this. That's great. I'm so happy you've taken the time to find a financial advisor and work on your financial future. What I've found in my time in the industry is that most financial advisors focus on financial offense, growing the market, growing their assets, building wealth, chasing returns, picking stocks. Is that what your financial advisor typically does? Yeah, that sounds like every annual review I go to. Okay, I'm here to partner with that financial advisor to help you play financial defense. Sometimes people with financial advisors are your greatest prospects because they understand the need for overall financial planning, but they're not talking to their advisor about financial defense. It's a problem we have in our industry. And so that's kind of where this conversation stems from. And then, of course, telling a story about a client. If you know a client that had what they thought everything was going the right way, one thing happened, and now they're in financial despair, any type of story typically helps. If you don't have a story, you can go on lifehappens.org. It's an industry website. You can pull some of those videos, some of those flyers, drip them on your clients, right? Send them out, email them out after you speak to clients about a couple of those items. The last thing I want to do, just for the next couple of minutes here, I'm going to switch and I'm going to go over to my iPad here, and I am going to be looking down during this, so I apologize, but I want to draw on my screen a little bit. And again, what I found is that when you're sitting across the table from a client, the best way to get them engaged is to do something that does not involve a brochure and does not involve a PowerPoint presentation. Right? When you can draw something on a cocktail napkin, when you could draw something on a piece of paper, or you can give them the pen and have them draw it, that's really where you have some really robust conversations with your client. Right? And we were talking about the DIME method a little bit earlier. And we showed them where those numbers were coming from. See if I can get my own picture out of here. That's okay. We're talking about the DIME method, and we're coming up with a number, right? Our clients have not done the math for a 20 or 30-year period of time. They don't know how much insurance they need. They don't know how much money they need to retire. They don't know how much their expenses will be in retirement. They don't know how to prepare. They just don't know because they haven't done the math. We've got the tools. We've got the resources. We've got the knowledge to help them do the math. But I think it makes sense for us to write some of those numbers down on a simple white piece of paper, give them to our client and say, hey, we're proposing you need $2 million of coverage. Immediately, the client is thinking, $2 million bucks. I don't have $2 million. I've never seen $2 million. I don't think I need $2 million. And that's where these clients say, I just need $500,000 and I'm good. right? Joe Jordan said it. Okay, if you're making 200 grand a year and you're comfortable with 200,000 of life insurance, it begs the question, how long do you plan to be dead? Right? You need more than 1 or 2 or 3 times your salary. We need to help our clients do that math. So one thing that I've always liked to do is when I come up with that number, I'll turn that piece of paper around, shove it in front of my client, give them the pen, and say, does this number look right to you? Is there anything you want to change? Is there anything you want to modify? Is there anything you want to cross out? If you think $2 million is enough, is too much, let's cross one of these out. We can give you 1.5, but I want to make sure that you're coming up with the number, not me. And so the other thing that I like to do is when I run an illustration for a client, right, I like to digest the numbers, run through the pages, look at all the numbers, and then create a story around that illustration that I can articulate to the client. And so it typically looks something along these lines here. There's typically 4 reasons why people buy insurance. I'll get my pen out here. Got legacy. Got income. Final expenses. And education. I am a lefty, so that's why my handwriting looks like that. But when you run the illustration and you start talking through everything they wanted to do, right? Mr. and Mrs. Client, you've told me that you'd like to, if possible, leave $1 million legacy for your kids, for your charities, for the people you care about. Based on our needs analysis, we've determined that you want about $100,000 a year in income in retirement, right? And we'll assume that's for 20 years. Now, again, we can play with these numbers as much as we want to. When we look at final expenses, that can vary. Most people think of a funeral cost being 10, 15, 20 grand, but I like to expand that a little bit, right? A friend of mine lives in Colorado. His father just died yesterday here in Atlanta. And so immediately he had to book flights to come back to Atlanta with his wife, his 2 kids. His sister lives in LA. She has to fly home. Those tickets the day before are like $2,000. Now you've got to get hotels. You've got to get a rental car. You're going to be here for 4 days. You've got meals. So it's more than just the funeral expenses. You want to be able to fly people in, to spend time with you, right, during that time where you're grieving. And so final expenses is a number that changes all the time. Let's just say it's 70 grand, right? And that number can change. And lastly, when we talk about how some people will utilize insurance, it's for an education purpose. I've got 2 kids. I'm not going to pay for their full college. I'm going to do what my parents did and say, I'm going to give you 100 grand. If you decide to go to med school, that might be 2 years of coverage. If you decide to go to public school, it might be 4 years of college, 5 years of college, and then you get to keep the excess, right? So I'm planning 100 grand for each kid. Let's assume that's $200,000. Now, when you add all these up, okay, we've got $1 million from a legacy. We've got $2 million from income, 2.2, call it 2.3 million bucks in total value that this will ultimately end up bringing you. When you go shopping, what kind of discounts do you get excited about? Do you get excited when something's 10% off, 20% off, 30% off? What if I could tell you that this is 85% off today? And that number decreases every day that you wait. That sale will decrease. Eventually, it's going to be 75% off. Then it's only going to be 50% off. And at some point, they might just say it's no longer for sale. Right now, we're talking about health issues, people that can't get underwritten. Now, the good news is I'm not asking you for all this money today. All you need is $360,000, right? That's the sale price today. You give me $360,000, I'll give you $2.3 million back. Now, most clients are going to sit there and chuckle and be like, I don't have 400 grand to give you. That's great. Best part about what we do is we can take this in any way you want. What I'm proposing here is $1,000 a month. For $1,000 a month, I can ensure you've got $1 million legacy, a $2 million income, 70+ grand for final expenses, and $200,000 for kids' education. When you break it down like this, we haven't shown them a 60-page illustration. We haven't gone through indexes, caps, strategies, anything like that. But most people don't know how much it's going to take to get them where they need to be. This is the easiest way to break that down. For $1,000 a month, I can get you all 4 of these things. Is that something you'd like to pursue? Right, so you can take these very complex conversations, break them down into bite-sized pieces. Obviously, you send them the illustration, you do everything else you need to do from a compliance standpoint, but you've got to be master storytellers. Now, that was a very rushed version. I'm out of time, but I will turn it over to Jody or Kimberly or Zach for any questions, comments, thoughts before we wrap up here?
That's strong. I love it. Love the mic drop moments, guys. That's what it's about. And I concur 1,000%. And I can feel the wind from Kimberly shaking her head. I can imagine on when you're sitting down in front of somebody, when you're talking to them, don't whip out the flip chart. Don't whip out the presentation, the computer, whatever. Is have those conversations. That's a perfect example of that. Very, very pointed, very powerful. Read the room, know what they're excited about, and go right there. And that was awesome. Simple concepts. So it was awesome stuff today. Power Pack every week is going to be like this, guys. Get your teams on. Next week, we got some incredible things. I mean, we do for the next several weeks in a row. So excited to have you here. Anything you guys wanted to add, Zach and Kimberly, before we say goodbye?
I think it's fantastic. I've never seen it drawn out like that. So I love always having, those different presentations, different perspectives.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's human nature. It's the exact same information, but it's just how we are hearing it little different ways, stimulate us to go do it. That's just how we are. And we as leaders always have to come up with little different ways to say the same thing just because that's how we are. But the key again is this. I want us to be known as a team of action. And I'm not talking about cute phrases like we're the team of action or we're the massive imperfect action. I know all that stuff. I don't even want to talk about it. Go do it. Go take what you just heard. Go see how many people you can show that to next week and get back on here and say, you know what? I just want to tell you, I showed what Matt showed me last week to 25 people. And if you do that, I'll let you talk as long as you want to on here. Go act on what you heard. Don't care how it made you feel. Don't care if you thought it was good. He don't need the warm fuzzy. He said, oh, you're great. Kimberly, you're great. Jody, you're great. Zach, you're great. Whoever's great. We don't care. Go do it. Go act on what you hear. That's where we're at. And the more you compact it, the more presentations you can give, miracles will happen, guys. Thank you so much. Congratulations, because you did act today by being on. So you did the right thing. Now go double whammy that as you go forward. Thanks, Matt. Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Quick
Thank you,
question.
Tim.
What's your question, Maria?
Question?
Yeah, for Matt. Matt, I have 3 policies from 2015 for A&D, and my client want to convert to Corebridge now to our platform, and it's a possible client. So I would love for you to just give me a call and see how we can accelerate this process, because that presentation that you just did to me is exactly what I'm gonna do to him and to my other clients. So can you help me with that? Because
Absolutely. I'll give you a call this afternoon.
okay, thank you. I truly appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Okay,
Hey,
bye.
thank you, Maria. Hey, by the way, what that presentation and what we're going to do on those, our whole call next week is just on that, just on what we just talked about. So thanks, guys. Take
Okay.
care.
Thank you. Thank you.
1:30, I'm doing the bot for realtors.